Anyway, my name is Jakob Gottlieb Svendsen, and I come from CT Global in Denmark, and I should shut the music off, actually. So, how many was here last year? And how many of you joined my Lego session? Okay, so the people who wasn't there, I can reveal that nothing worked. So now I'm trying to do it again. Not the same, but so, and it already failed because I lost one of the bricks. So you see, robot has one arm here, but no arm here, because I'm losing one of the most important pieces. Doesn't really matter because I don't need it for the demos that I planned today. So he's been with me since 2012 and been around the world a few times, or 5. And yeah, I've had the curse of that robot many times that it didn't work. I actually stopped myself in using it because I had 3 conferences in a row where it failed. But then I got requested by conferences saying, hey, come and speak about the Lego robot. But what do you want me to speak of? We don't care. Just as you come with the Lego robot, everything is great. So started using it again. And what I'm going to talk about today, oh, I didn't do the countdown. What I'm going to talk about today is, oh, we need to wait for the countdown. Yeah, little feedback, maybe faster countdown next year. What I'm going to talk about is stuff what went wrong last year. Whatever improved, a little extra things for the robot, and yeah, a little surprise in the end. So if you look at my setup up here, let me just go here. Yeah, you will learn to like Mr. Brick, though he can be kind of hard if you step on him. You know, it's a Lego. Very funny. I became a dad recently, by the way. So, Lego Self-Service PSConf 18, aka What the Brick Happened Last Year. Admitting to failure, moving on, fixing last year's trouble, and then, little surprise, next. So, the demo I had last year was self-service. The idea is to order the robot to go somewhere, get an email approval, you approve the email, it triggers Mr. Brick. But since Mr. Brick is on an on-premises location here, it needs an on-premise machine to trigger him. So that's why I have a little mini computer here, just running Windows 10, completely normal, but it runs Azure as what's called a hybrid worker. Let me get back to that in a second. So for the portal, I used SharePoint Online, or on-premises if you want. It's easy to make a little form there. And using what's called Azure Automation, you probably heard about that, is a service in Azure where you can run PowerShell and Python. Trigger between when we create something in SharePoint and trigger it in the automation, we use Microsoft Flow. Again, this is or we could use Logic App, which is actually the same thing, almost. It's just more enterprise-friendly. Or we could use SharePoint Workflow, which was what I used in 2012. But since Flow is easy, Logic App is pretty easy, SharePoint is pretty easy. So, what do I have? I have internet via my smartphone. Sounds like the best idea in the world, right? And it actually has been very stable for me. I have SharePoint, Microsoft Flow, Azure Automation, and hopefully the robot will move. The little mini computer I have is this one. It's kind of a little bigger than a Raspberry Pi, but also a lot faster. It runs Windows 10. As you can see, it can actually run 3 4K screens. It had 3 video outputs. It's 10 times as fast as a Raspberry Pi. It has a built-in Arduino, so if you want to do Arduino stuff, it's also built in. And it's running on a normal M2 disk, so it's actually pretty fast. But I was planning to use it as a media center at home, but since now I have a 1.5-year-old daughter, and it's not really that sturdy, you know. It doesn't have any real cabinet or anything, so to put it where she could find it, it would last like 5 minutes, I think. So let's see a little demo of that. Okay. See, it's always good to remember passwords. At least if it's a demo account like this. In here we have SharePoint, and there's probably many people who don't like SharePoint. But for this specific purpose, SharePoint is really good. In here I have a list, but on that list I've enabled what's called a flow here, which means I can set up triggers to say, okay, if I create something in this list, do something. My flows here, I probably have a lot because I've done that demo in different places. Look at it here. You see, when I make something new, let me just open this before I zoom. If I make something new in the list, new item is created. I use a step called send an approval, which generates an email. If we have a response approved, then we go this way, and then we send an email to the person who ordered it that now it's approved, and then we create a job, which means we run a PowerShell script in Azure Automation called new robot flow. When you select one of these scripts, runbooks as they call them in Azure Automation, the parameters pop up here. So any field I have in my SharePoint list, I can then map into the inputs of the runbook. So in this case, I have IP address, I have an action, and a length in centimeters. So if I do a new step here, we can call it psconf, please work. I should remember, and that's easy to remember, right? The IP address. I better do a little check here. See. Yeah, that looks correct. I've made a little drop down, so we'll say grab, even though it can't grab anything with just one arm. And I will make sure that it hopefully doesn't go over the edge of the table. That would be pretty crucial at this point. So we take this, and this means that the flow triggers. So if I go in here, one step back, we'll see that it's already triggered. I'll just jump into it quickly, and you can see it's waiting here. So this means that I have an email waiting for me for my Outlook online here. See, please review, please work. And at the moment that I click approve here, this will continue. And as I said, it'll go in and it'll create a job in Azure Automation. Azure Automation is here, and I know it's small, but you don't really need to see the details. This is the service that can execute PowerShell. So you see, jobs is executing a script. The thing you can do here is that you can, see, it's actually running stuff now. It's a test account, so I'm testing failures, let's say it like that. But you can, in here, add a machine that you have somewhere as a hybrid worker. So I have different groups of machines here. One is called home, and in home, I have this machine as a member. So the machine I've downloaded a client, an agent, the Microsoft monitoring agent, installed that and connected it to here. So if I ask a job to be run at home, that machine will execute the PowerShell and therefore can connect to the robot. So let's try and approve the email. Here we go. Approve, working on it. If it's slow, it's probably just my internet. There we go, you see, approved. If I go here and check, we have the flow running. And here's my inputs. You see I got the right inputs. It's queued, so it's waiting for the machine to pick up the job. And hopefully the machine is online. Sorry? Is it? Oh no. Okay. So it's already failing. So this is the curse of the blue room that I also talked about yesterday. So what do we do? You know how to restart a computer without a screen? You just pull out the power, put it back in, and so it should trigger. Luckily, I don't really need it so much for these demos, because as I said, I'm gonna come into about what went wrong last year, but now also something went wrong this year, so maybe fix that first. It should go online very soon. It's probably because I started the machine before I started my telephone, and it's probably not jumped onto the network. Yeah, that's right. There was so you see, this is my extremely beautiful computer name, and it says it hasn't been there since yesterday. All right, the problem is really when you have a machine like that and you don't have what's called a screen, it does get pretty hard to change the settings if the network doesn't work. Anyway, it should have triggered, and as I said, this is not an important thing. It again shows that when you do these kind of things with Lego robots and weird things, there's a lot of things that can go wrong. I've had some issues that it would jump to the wrong Wi-Fi, like the speaker Wi-Fi, but it's actually weird. I tested this like 1 million times on Tuesday. All right, it's not that bad. So how many was there yesterday for my DJ session? Oh, nice to see you again. So must have been okay then. I promised to show the Lego robot in the context of the DJ set. I forgot yesterday that I had added that to my session, so I didn't have the robot with me. Oh, better not put it like that if it actually starts. If this job starts, it will go over the edge. So anyway, so now I have a little issue, right? I have a hybrid worker, but it's not connected for some reason. I cannot fix it. So, well, luckily, as I said, most of the demos here are not meant to use that hybrid worker. So that is okay. If we look here, this is my thing from yesterday where I had the music. And it has the tempo here, and it sends the tempo to PowerShell. So in here I have a little thing here. If I run this, see? These commands, turn left, right. And I have a little variable here that said robot enabled. And if you see my session from yesterday, or saw it yesterday, you see the recording, this will trigger every time there's a beat in the music. So if I enable this global variable called robot enabled equals true, right. And it's almost going to the edge, so maybe, hey, don't dance, it's damn drunk butt. What I wanted to show is I can also change the tempo here if I want to. Master, oh, sorry, not auto. All right. So that was the first thing I wanted to show. That was what I couldn't show yesterday, but now you see the robot works. So we have our friend Torsten up here. He made a little tweet last year. Says he loved my session, and there was nothing else than an introduction to Lauren and Hardy's famous slow burn. And I actually didn't know that personally, but I looked it up, and it's a little story about everything that goes wrong, and every time they try to fix it, it goes even more wrong. That was about my session last year in short. Okay, so let's see. How many of you was at the closing ceremony last year? All right. What happened? What the frick happened? Part 1. Wi-Fi via cell phone. It has worked many times, but I decided that just before my session last year that maybe it was cool if I showed the screen of the phone in one of the demos. But the screen sharing app took all the CPU. So when it was Wi-Fi, it didn't have time to be Wi-Fi, the packages didn't arrive, so half of the time I would send something to it, nothing would happen. Another thing is I had voice control last year, Google Assistant, but PSConf is way too fun, so my voice had kind of broken. And with my accent already, it was actually difficult to get it to understand what I was saying. That kind of sucked, you know. So I had somebody else speak for me and say it. No. So that is the two things that, I mean, I'm still using, so I actually brought like routers and whatnot this year because I was like, I'm going to make another setup than the phone, but it turns out the phone works the best. I could have used the speaker Wi-Fi directly, but there is a bug in the robot. I set everything up, the machine, my machine here, all the stuff I needed, and then I wanted to log the robot to the network, and there's a special character in the password. And if you click special characters in the GUI there, nothing happens. So I couldn't use the Wi-Fi because there was one special character in the password. Super annoying. So back to the phone. Hopefully it doesn't ring. So first thing that went wrong last year, and check out the amazing quality of this video. It's because it's from the corner of the recording from YouTube. First thing that went wrong. 4 length centimeters, and then I need my new analog device here. So we'll measure. It's 40, supposed to pick up that little cup there. If I can actually hit that thing, because it can actually be a little difficult. If you just pause 40 here, centimeters. You heard me say it can be hard to hit that. That's because I knew that this technical issue has happened a few times before. So as an experienced speaker, I tried to cover my ass before it would happen. 40. Yep. And then action should be grab. Oh, grab. It loads the thing, and it goes completely to the side, right? Well, it was a good first try. So you see it catches it here, like, wow, amazing. And then... Okay, what happened? Did you see it turned a little bit when it started? Not good. It was because I was using what's called, you see, can't go straight, what the fuck, drunk bot. It was because I was using direct commands, so I would test it at home, I would test it in my hotel room. I could never see why this didn't work, but multiple times on stage, it failed. So that was kind of one of the first curses of this robot. The problem is, when you send direct commands, you send one command to one motor, that's one side, one to the other motor, and it doesn't go straight. And I actually just need to do this. Just a second. Because the thing is, if you load too much of that DJ and robot, and it's going to use too much power. So just as a safety feature here, I'm going to have this. So the direct command is here, right? So if I use this, I have as a .NET thing that I use to connect to the robot, and last year I just had the direct code like this, but you'll see that this year I actually made a module for it, because that's the first thing I heard from the other speakers. Why didn't you make a module? You're an amateur? No. They didn't say that. Let's see. I say one motor left, go at 40% speed, 100 steps. Second motor is right, also 100 steps. Oh, sorry, this is... No, this is actually the code that works, so it's write some code that doesn't work. Because I was using this thing called direct commands, and we say step motor at speed async. Take this, put it here, left and right, and I try and run it. It's running a few times, and you see it sometimes doesn't go straight. And the thing is, because Wi-Fi's, sometimes I would see up to 30 Wi-Fi's in one of these rooms, because everybody has it on their phone and so on. And all this interference would do that the messages didn't arrive immediately. Therefore, one motor starts before the other, therefore it doesn't hit this thing. And let's just reset it here. Maybe you can be my assistant. No, what I found that it can support something called batch commands. So I kind of prepare the command. I want left and right to go whatever, like that, nothing happens. But then when I send the commands to the robot, nothing happens. Yeah, it should have happened here. Anyway, this is what I've implemented in my module, which I'll show you in just a second. So that was the first thing. I was using batch commands, and I don't mean commands.cmd files or anything like that. All right. Enter the PS Lego EV3 PowerShell module. So I kind of made it better now with a complete module for the robot. The reason why it didn't work right just before is probably that if you load some of these files multiple times, you have to make a new session in PowerShell every time. So I have a PS Core version and a PowerShell Windows version. The reason I still have a Windows version is that some of the other stuff I've been using, like the DJ stuff, uses some libraries that I didn't have time to convert into PowerShell Core. So I'm not one of the cool guys that still use Windows PowerShell. Of course I do. But let's see here. Live control, PS Lego EV3. When we had the closing session last year, I got a message. We agreed it like half an hour before the closing session, like, hey, can you put a needle on the robot and then we can blow up a balloon? And I was like, that sounds great. Let's do that. But then one of the PowerShell team members said, let me just find it here and make it bigger. This is the module, and let's take the Windows version. Go and close this one. Okay, so these are the commands. There's a command to connect, like here, the network communication. There is commands to invoke a motor directly, as I showed before, stop motor. But this one, live control, this is what I actually code. Whoa, hey, don't do that. How many have used PS readline? That's a few. I never heard about it before until I was told about it last year and said, why don't you just use PS readline? Because you can override buttons such as up arrow, down arrow, right arrow, and you can insert a script bug that happens when you execute the code. And this was 10 minutes before the session. And I was like, that sounds great. I coded it right away. And I actually coded it, and it didn't work. But I found out afterwards that it did work. It was just because PS readline in the PowerShell extension in VS Code is not supported. If I had executed the script in ISE or in command, it would have worked. So damn it. So but now I have it here. So you can actually, in the module, and I'll be sure to run it the right place, you can connect to the robot, like that. And if it doesn't work the first time, this is because I executed multiple times the same thing. It's a little annoying. But I think it's something with the .NET library there that doesn't like to be started twice. It's actually pretty weird. Anyway, we'll just connect here. No, see, it's not called start live control because that's another thing, you see. Start live control. Where's your prefix? You need a prefix because that's the rules of PowerShell. So it's called start EV3 live control. And again, it's acting up a little bit. Let's start it from here. The thing is, you can also not have multiple editors running that have connected to the Lego robot at the same time. So you see, there's so many things that can act up a little bit. Yep. See, I can open. So I made a little video on... Stop. Made a little video on Twitter that you might be able to find where my cat is chasing it because the cat was like, what the fuck? But that was the resurrection because you'll see another thing that happened last year, which you might remember from the closing ceremony and the stuff about... This is the closing ceremony. It had 3 angles, and you see this one, Jay Stover was live. He was tweeting it live, streaming it. And maybe the slow motion over here, see it oh! And you can see it again over here. I knew that was going to happen because Tobias held the balloon a little too far out. So I knew if I'm going to hit that balloon, the robot's going to go over the edge. And I thought, why the heck not? It's Lego. It's indestructible. And here's the code, right? I was sending the direct commands. It looks exactly like the example I was just using before. So I resurrected it, put it together again. But I needed something, so I called it Edge Defense, and this is this one, and I'm going to do live Lego on stage here. Right? So this is a scanner that I can put into the robot down here. Like that. And this. Okay, and we connect this to the inputs. And this is also, I forgot to mention that this is the standard Lego set. And if you look here, you see it's red. Maybe I can put it like that. But I can actually use that. Let's see here. We'll start a new, I see. Sorry for restarting every time, but that's the most safe way to get it working. Okay. Go to Edge. So we connect to the robot, and I'll just use the direct code here. That's the code that's also in the module, just to show you that it's not that many lines. So we connect. But this, I can set up a port and set a mode to whatever I can see into the Rubik's Cube. Because the robot here can actually see color. It can see color, it can see distance. It also has actually infrared eyes. So it can actually do a lot. I don't know if anybody has seen it, but there's somebody who made a Lego Mindstorms solving robot in Lego, for the Rubik's Cube. I can solve it in like 10 seconds or something. But the moment right now it's red, and the moment I set the mode, it should have turned to another color, right? Yeah, so now it's finding the colors, and it has built-in support for, funny enough, all the colors on a Rubik's Cube, and no other colors. So if we do this, now I can do a little smart thing here. I can say, okay, I want to make an event, an object event. And I also talked about this in my DJ session. When you register events on objects in PowerShell, it's kind of like if you have a button on a web page or a GUI, and when you click the button, that's the click event. We have the same here. Robot sends events whenever stuff happens. So whenever it changes its state, that could be one of the sensors or the motor or something that changes. It executes a brick changed event. So in the code, I can actually make a brick change event, and I can then execute this script block every time that happens. So what do I do here? Well, the thing is, if it doesn't see anything, the robot, like now, it will say the color is transparent. But as soon as I put it on here, like that. Oh, it's almost falling over because all the bricks are not there. It will actually say another color. So let's just execute it first without actually running the robot, and we can see what happens. Right? So if I run this little loop and you see it says white. And if I go this, transparent. Actually, this is the one that's acting up a little bit. You have to be really flexible when working with Lego on stage. Okay, so now it says black. That's because it's all the way to there's no light in there, so it looks like it's black. So I can actually say, okay, let's take this one first, actually. This one is the same, but what I'll do is I'll just change the background color of the text to whatever color it sees. So we unregister the event I had registered before. Oh, I need to go out of the loop. Unregister the event, register a new event. That does almost the same thing. Oh, yeah. See, this is the good old thing where you forget to mark the whole line there. What is going on here? Okay. Sorry? What, sorry? Yeah, that is my idea, because it then receives the result. But again, what to do if it doesn't work? Restart. That's the key thing you will learn from my session. Just restart if nothing works. The thing was that I forgot here, change the IP, for instance, because it's not permanent, and we'll try again here. And it's meant to be in the loop because it's supposed to write, the color black. But it only writes it if it changes. So now I can take my little Rubik's Cube and I can try to, without shaking too much, and you see brown, sometimes you see red ups brown, blue, green, so on. So it can actually make a solving robot if you want to. Okay. So what can I use it for? Well, I can, again, I just, while talking, restart this to be sure it doesn't overwrite. So I can make the code that says, if you are going somewhere and the color changes to transparent, then stop the motors, so that it doesn't go over the edge of the actual table. Yep. Thank you. Okay. The reason why I do this loop is when you register an object event, it's actually a background job. So to get the actual output of my events, I need to receive the job here. And to make it easier for the demo, well, I just make an infinite loop, which is always good practice in development. Okay. So this says, if we start with color transparent, then the color changes to whatever it sees. If the new color is not the same as last time, and the new color is transparent, then stop the motors. So if I start the motors here, I run in 30, so I can actually make it over there before it might fail. You see that it goes very slowly, and hopefully it didn't do jack shit. Sorry for my French. Okay, we just execute these. Okay, let's just try and execute this code again. Okay, so it did work. It was just, I think what happened before was I forgot to re-register the event. So of course it didn't work. You have to register the event and then the code will be executed. That is pretty obvious. Let's try it again. Whoa. So far, so good. But what I can then add to the thing is the second one here, because if I can grab something which I can't because I was losing my the actual brick to actually make the gripper work, but you can still see it move. So using my module, it's gonna look like this instead, and we're gonna get out of the loop. And I think we need to restart again just to be sure. Sorry about all those. But it would be great if I could just open 10 at the same time, but I can't do that either. This might be an improvement for the module at some point. But I love the thing that you can make functions where you can send script blocks into the function. So if you look at this function from my module, it's called enable EV3 edge protection. And it contains exactly what I showed before. It contains the stopping commands, but after the stopping commands, it's going to execute the script block that I sent into the command. So if I want the robot to go to the edge and then drop the thing, I can send the drop command, which is this one, to the thing. Yep. Yeah. See. And then also grab. So it's like this, and then we put the edge detection on. We move 10,000 steps, that's like 10 meters or something. And then it should stop and do its action. So this is actually falling off here. This is probably better now, right? Yes. Okay. So far, so good. So I call this session Mr. Brick Unplugged. I showed you the color scanner. And then we have the VNext. Right now I'm sending directly from my computer here. But I can actually, I managed to actually do something. So the thing is, I'm running extremely, the basic, this is the completely normal firmware from Lego. The only thing I've added is this little thing here, which is the Wi-Fi adapter. But it actually supports booting on your own SD card. Enter the new brain for Mr. Brick here. Because you can download a Linux distribution called EV3Dev, which is super easy. You just put it on here, stick this into the robot, turn the robot on, and now it's a Debian Linux machine. So I was like, yes, and I can make PowerShell run on the actual robot. That would be amazing. So I spent a few nights trying to do that. But I quickly realized that the CPU in here is not good enough to run .NET. It's not an ARM32 CPU, it's a 16-bit or something crappy, 300 megahertz, really, yeah, crappy. So, unfortunately, I cannot run PowerShell on the robot. But what I can do is, we'll have it load, and I actually put, oh, I forgot to do that, just a second. Snag it. Just a funny thing here. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I just had a little picture of it, but apparently, oh, sorry about that. The thing is, they have actually managed on here to make like logging entries where they made a font that is only 2 pixels high. But you can actually read it. And I mean, the guy or girl who has made that thing has really spent some time trying to make a font in, 4 pixels. Too high and too wide, something like that. So I had a little picture of that. But this means now it's a Linux machine. I can use the network. I can run stuff on it. I just need to log on to my Wi-Fi. 1 second. As again, I said, it's a 300 megahertz CPU, so connect. There is actually an option to run PowerShell on the Lego robot, but it requires a little cheating, and that means you can actually buy a new body, a new brain for him. This is based on PI, called Brick PI. And then you have, a Raspberry Pi robot. Okay, connected. So you need to see the CPU, which is, of course, the same as before. It's the same network adapter. So this means now I can go in and open here, open there. And again, it's probably pretty slow. Sorry for moving all the time. Here you go. So this is the last thing I added to the robot. And of course, it's always 10 times lower when you do it on stage. It's the demo gods. Maybe I have to become religious for them to like me again. But I know it's small text, but this is actually just a Linux SSH distribution. You can see the EV3Dev that I talked about, and I haven't done anything but download an image, put it on an SD card, put the SD card in there, and turn on the machine. So what to do? Well, first I thought, can I make it run, hybrid connections because I know that you can make hybrid connections on what's called WebSockets. And I could run that in Node on the machine. But I found that the version of Node that runs on this machine is 0.010. And we are at 7 dot something now. And all the libraries that you would need to make that, you couldn't because yeah, because it needed a much newer version of Node. So I looked into other types of things, and Azure IoT Hub is what I ended up with. So what I have is actually a script running. I'll open it here. Maybe, is this actually blasphemy to open a Python script in PowerShell IC? First of all, I've never done any Python, so it took me a while to figure out how you write this stuff. But now it actually connects to, oh, that's my key. Doesn't matter because it's just a test thing. But it can now actually connect to Azure IoT Hub directly. So if I go here and execute the script, I write Python 3, and then my script name, it's going to say, hopefully going to say successfully connected. And when that is done, it is directly connected to Azure. And I can send messages to IoT Hub that will arrive on the robot within, I don't know, half a second maybe. So it's loading, and it says, yes, connected, code 0. Back to my restarting of PowerShell, back to my module. You'll see, and if you look into my module, that I added another way to connect. So we go here and say Azure IoT Hub demo, which is not there, but it's here somewhere, here. So you get a connection string from Azure IoT Hub, and this time I try to hide it because I put it in a text file so you can't see it, but I just showed you the key anyway, so that doesn't really matter. So what I can do is I can import my module, I can connect using same command, but give it an Azure IoT connection string. And for that, I found a module, like Mark Schulman, if you know him. He has made a module a few years ago for sending Azure IoT messages. So again, I stole that and then used that. In Azure IoT, you have different devices that you register, and we call him Mr. Robot here, or Mr. Brick. So I set the device name, and now if I run this command, it's going to send the message to IoT Hub, and then it's going to receive it from IoT Hub, and it's going to move. Hopefully. See? There we go. So maybe we go a little further, like 100 steps. That was not much, huh? 1,000 steps. See? So now it's connected, and we can actually control it without having the hybrid worker. He's been unplugged from the on-premises, and now he's directly connected to Azure. And it works better than all the other stuff I had before, so it's pretty good. And we can even do live, like before. It's just a little slower sometimes. No, as I said, there was sometimes an issue in here. So if we want live control and we want to make sure it works every time, we'll just use a normal. But the problem is, it's a little delayed, so it's easy to go over the edge, you know? See? And just let's see here. Let's just get a little Zoom program for this last thing. Because if we look at our Python script here, you'll see that it receives some JSON. I send a JSON message saying left speed, left duration, right speed, so left and right motor, how far should it go, and how should it go, and then you see here, it goes the way you want it. 140 steps, that's something I put as a default value in the function when you click the up button. If you want the forward command without any settings, it'll do 140 steps at full speed, which is called 1,000 in this library. So now it's actually connected directly, which is super cool. So we can avoid it by using evdev.org. There's also other libraries out there. There's an old one called in Mono, which is the first .NET-like thing on Linux. But yeah, that's about it, what I have for today. Is there any questions from anybody? Anybody been playing with Mindstorms after my session last year? Yes, 2. Success. Yeah. Future plans. There was one thing I didn't manage to finish. I actually have a drone that I wanted to synchronize to my DJ set. But but I bought the wrong drone. There is a drone, some mini drones that use Bluetooth LE, and that is one of the ones I bought, and it was really difficult to make. And little funny story is I made a little GUI with a takeoff button and a land button, but the land button didn't work, so it took off. It took off in my living room and like this outside my face, and I was like, I had to try and code the land button, and it wasn't stable, so I had to do like this. Oh shit. I thought, this is too dangerous, you know? We're not gonna risk my life for a demo on PSConf. But yeah, I don't know what else. We'll see next year. Maybe we'll find out something nice, or maybe I'll make it actually run PowerShell somehow. But yeah, if you don't have any more questions, then thank you for coming. And it worked all right, right?